In this video, we're going to talk about the Site Reliability Engineering Practitioner sample paper. This is part of preparing you for the certification exam. All right, we'll go through each question one at a time, and I'll explain the question and the answers. Okay, so the first question is, why are containers important for modern distributed architectures? So the first answer is containers are inherently more secure than monolithic applications. There is some truth in that, for sure. I mean, there are some advantages of using containers in some security use cases, so that's a possibility. Containers are the only processes that run on a cloud. That's certainly not true. You can have other applications running on a cloud. They don't have to be containerized. But there are some advantages using containers in a cloud environment, but that's not a correct answer for the question. Containers enable agile development and deployment. So I'm assuming they mean agile in the English sense, rapid feedback and all of that. That's very true. In fact, that's a better answer than A, because you can stand up a container and, do whatever you're going to do, whether it's using for builds or testing very quickly for both the development processes and deployment. So that's a good answer to that question. Let's see, the last question is last answer is containers support having unique dev and prod environments. That's not a particularly great answer to the question. It can happen that containers can be used for setting up development and production environments. The word unique is a little odd, and certainly that's not the best answer. So the best answer is C. Containers enable agile development and deployment. And by the way, there is, as I said, an answer sheet later on, so you can check the answers yourself for this sample paper. You go down to a table. Let's just see if we can show you that real quick. There's the answer key. So answer 1 is C. And the other thing is it also gives you a reference to which module in the course contains the answer. So if you need to go searching for that question and answer, you'd find it in the what they call topic area. It's really the module of the course, module 3. By the way, I would recommend that you use the Control F function on the PDF of your course materials as an even better way to search for questions and answers. Use some keywords and use a Control F. That will help you find things a little quicker during the heat and limited time of the exam. Be aware though, when you use a Control F on a PDF, it's really doing a text search. So if the answer happens to be in an image on the on the materials, it might not find it. You may have to get creative to find the right slide and the answer on the slide. So you can, as a hint, you can use items that are in the question or in the answers to help you find, most likely it's going to be items in the question or possibly in your expected answer. Another hint is I would recommend you go through all 40 questions and just make a mark as you go through it the first time through and select some answer, A, B, C, or D. If you're 100% sure about your answer, then just leave it at that. But if you have any doubt, you can also click, I'm not sure. And then after you've answered all 40, then go back to the ones that you clicked, I'm not sure. And those are the ones that I would take that extra process, and if I were you, and go to the slides and look up the slides, either using your own leafing through the slides or looking for the module from the answer sheet, or my own view, the best is to use a Control F to search for that material. It's probably the fastest way. Anyhow, that's some hints. Let's go to question 2. How can you secure a distributed architecture? So we're talking about security here. Introducing a zero trust approach. That's true in general across all different aspects of systems, so it's certainly including the architecture, whether it's distributed or not. So A is a good answer. Use ID-based security controls. Yes, that's also a very good answer. Modern security is all about protecting things that are assets that are identified through identifiers. It's no longer just about protecting perimeters of a data center or something. So B is also a very good answer. C, move to continuous validation. That's also a good answer. You want to have continuous security, validate security controls continuously. So I think the best answer here is D. Let me check my answer sheet. Yes, D is the best answer. So let's move on to question 3. An organization has received numerous complaints about the frequency of system outages and lack of communication received during these outages. Okay, so it's complaints about outages and lack of communication. A team has identified several ways to improve the organization's major incident management process. Which of these options, of the following options, would address the customer complaints most effectively? Invest in detection and alerting systems. Yeah, that might help. Establish an incident command system. That also would be very good. That actually, yeah. So it's major incident management process. That's probably a better answer. Again, you have to be careful to match the question exactly to the answer. So I think that's a more close fit. Implement a new incident management system. That may be necessary. Use swarming to engage multiple people in an incident resolution. That's also a good practice. So the question here is then, which is the best answer? So it probably should say that, right? Which option would best address the customer complaints? Because all of these are valid answers. I'm guessing the answer is B. And indeed, I just checked. Yes, it is B for the reason I mentioned. Okay, let's go to question 4. How does intentional architecture improve consistency and predictability? It introduces purposeful and planned architecture initiatives. Yes, that's a very good answer. It introduces architectural initiatives that will provide cloud landing zones. That may be, but it's not as strong an answer as A. It helps teams respond quickly to emerging user needs. It doesn't really have a lot to do with that. Architecture is not specifically about that anyway. It replaces emergency design patterns with teams. Again, that's not a direct answer to that question. So I believe the best answer is likely A. Let me double check to make sure. Yes, it's A for the reason I mentioned. Okay, question 5. What kind of scalability challenges does platform SRE try to solve? Fragmentation. It's a little bit vague. Inconsistency, unpredictability. So I guess if you're talking about fragmentation of tools, yes. Inconsistency, yes, in the sense that you want to provide, consistent standardization, and you can do that through platforms. Unpredictability is a little more vague, but it can partly for inconsistency, kind of the same thing to some extent. You have a more predictable environment because it's more consolidated. But I think the best answer here is D. Let me check the answer sheet. Yes, D. All right, let's go to number 6. Which of the following is not a key attribute considered when defining an alerting strategy? Which is not. So be careful about reading the questions carefully. Sometimes what I do with these questions is I reword them in my head, to try to make in my own mind what is really being asked. So I would, for these not questions, what I do in my head is I reword them as 3 of these answers are correct and one of them isn't. So which one isn't? Just to clarify when I'm thinking about the question. So precision. Certainly you want your alerting system to be precise. So that's probably a good answer, so it doesn't, fit a not criteria. Recall, that's a little vague. I'm trying to think that recall is being able to recall information correctly and consistently, but it doesn't really say that. So maybe B, mean time to repair. Okay, that's definitely not a key attribute for defining. It's maybe one of the metrics, but it's not an attribute for defining an alerting strategy. It might be something that you would alert with, but it's not something you're using to define. And reset time, certainly the time it takes to reset an alert. So A, B, and D are good answers. C is not, so the best answer is C. And indeed, that's what it says on the answer sheet. I have a copy offline on the answer sheet, so I'm cheating a little bit. Okay, a company is working with partners to develop a new cloud service to be used in a heavily regulated industry. So we're implementing a cloud service using partners in a heavily regulated industry. It wants to ensure that the components being consumed by the development teams have the necessary governance, controls, and standards built in. So the company, it wants to make sure that the partner of the cloud service is using components consumed by development teams and include necessary development, governance, controls, and standards built in, which would help achieve this. Adopt a SRE, platform SRE approach. So that is a good answer, right? That would all be built in. And it could be outsourced or work with partners to do that. Embed SREs in development teams. That may be a good idea sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily ensure these things. Establish an SRE center of excellence. That could help, but again, it doesn't directly address the question. And design for security. So again, this is not a question about security. So the best answer here is A. 7 is A. Yes, I just checked. System boundaries help in defining meaningful SLIs and SLOs, which is a key point to consider when establishing system boundaries. Define clear customer-facing capabilities. That's true. You do want to have SLOs and SLIs defined from, well, customers or clients. They may be internal clients, but definitely from that perspective. Focusing on individual system components. So that's not true. You're really looking at, you want a systems view, and that may involve multiple system components. You want to look at the total stack of things and orient them that way towards the customer. Defining SLAs for customer-facing capabilities. You do want to understand the SLAs for customer-facing capabilities, but that's not really what the question is asking. It's about defining meaningful SLOs and SLIs. Using averages to set a baseline. You want to be careful about using averages. I think that's discussed in the course. But I think the answer is A, 8A, yes.